Sakai boys.
Sakai boys.
So I feel like everybody sort of follows that. Like, it is a uniform society, but it's a very interesting society. It's very different from Australia.
America's like completely the opposite. We're very focused on like individualism, expression, all of that.
Tim, 29, Queensland, so from Brisbane. So I have been working in the ski resorts as a ski instructor and housekeeping, that sort of thing on my working holiday. Oh, it's fantastic. I love Japan. I think my favorite, I mean, the food is fantastic, but I love the culture. I love how everybody treats everybody. Everyone's very respectful of everyone. And there's a sort of an attitude in Japan of not making anybody else's life too difficult. So I feel like everybody sort of follows that. Like, it is a uniform society, but it's a very interesting society. It's very different from Australia. And I mean, also I love the scenery in Japan. The scenery in Japan is amazing. It's seriously one of the most beautiful countries I've ever been to. All the different sort of seasons and things, because again, in Australia we don't have really that range of seasons. I could go on. There's so many things I love about this country. It's amazing. I think one of the things I think is good about a uniform society is that sort of everybody, there's sort of a set way of doing things, and a lot of what I see in Japan is how people, even just coming down to things like where to line up and how people line up for public transport. Everybody sort of knows where to go. But the bad side, I suppose, of that is that you probably stick out a lot if you don't know the sort of the etiquette and the manners and things of how to do. And I'm still learning it all. Obviously, I'm very new to Japan. So I think as a foreigner, you do tend to stand out a bit. But, and yeah, I think I can understand that could also be difficult. Maybe if you lived here for a long time, it can be very hard to sort of be constrained like that. From some people I've talked to, they have found that challenging in Japan. So it really depends on what you like to do and how you want to live your life, I suppose. But I think that it's a very well-run country. I think things are pretty good here, but I could also understand that if people found it constrictive, with the uniform sort of approach to things. But yeah, as I say, I've only been here a few months, so I'm still learning all the... Yeah, I think my best advice is if you were coming over from Japan as a Japanese person, yeah, I would say just try and... Australia can probably be fairly overwhelming at first if you're not used to it, because it's very loud, and try and see things, try and talk to people would be my advice. Don't, spend some time going and visiting places. That's where you'll really start to appreciate things, depending on what you're looking for. Work is a great place to make friends. So definitely having a job will get you to meet people because you spend time with them every day. Yeah, ideally a social job. So if you become, say, a taxi driver or an Uber driver, probably not going to meet a lot of people. You will pick up people, but they might not talk. So it's better to do something like working in a cafe or a bar. Yeah, going out at night, it can be a bit tough to meet people in bars. It can seem like everybody sort of knows each other, but just maybe don't go to the busiest bars. Go to somewhere a little bit quieter where you can have a conversation with someone, and yeah, you'll definitely make more friends that way. Certainly been my experience traveling, and I think in Australia people are happy to talk to you and get to know where you're from. They're not going to be too awkward about that normally. So going out to places and talking to people, yeah, and then of course work. So I made quite a few friends through working here. A lot of the friends you make, are in the same sorts of positions you're in as well. They're trying to meet people. People who are very established might not look for so many friends, but if you go to like I stay in hostels and things as much as anything, so they tend to be a bit more social, a better way to meet people. So again, in Australia, it's the same. It's definitely, I think, well, I'm not saying it's the biggest, but I think something that's really talked about is the cost of living. Prices are in some areas very similar to Japan, but supermarkets here are a lot cheaper. So going to like most places, most things are cheaper. Whereas in Australia, they're very expensive, and it's actually becoming an issue to the point where the government is now getting involved, and they're questioning the supermarkets, because we've only really got 2 big supermarkets, and then there's not many others, so there's not much competition. So that's kind of a big issue right now. And housing, it's generally people with houses, but there's a lot of young people who don't have houses, so they're renting or they're living with their parents. Yeah. So I did a long time ago want to move to the United States. Yeah. When I was about 18, I thought about it. Look, honestly, New York City, Los Angeles, I could have been anywhere. There's a lot of parts, would have been nice to live. I think the appeal isn't quite what it used to be for me. I'd like to visit it. I don't know if I necessarily want to live there. There's so many other countries I want to see, and if I live somewhere, like Japan would be somewhere I'd probably live in before I'd live in America, simply because it's so peaceful. Japan has, but I feel like it balances a bit better. I never really thought about living in Canada. I did think about living in the UK. I've got family members who have lived in the UK. So yeah, in England would have been interesting, but again, it's very expensive as well. So I don't know if I would want to trade that. And I like Australia as well. Like I've come to appreciate things about Australia that maybe I didn't appreciate when I was younger. So, that's just part of getting older, I guess. I think it has its problems like any country. The problems, I think, look, it's expensive to live in. It is expensive, and it is competitive. Even though there's not that many people there, it's a competitive country because there's not many people. There's not a lot of it's hard to get jobs for a lot of people, and I think there's a lot of decisions sometimes that get made. There's a lot of politics that can be quite difficult in Australia. And and all of those things can make it hard to live in. And I think increasingly people are becoming more divided, which is unfortunate. But I love that it's free. I love that it's a really beautiful, free country. It's got beautiful scenery. The people are very friendly mostly, and we're very. It's kind of a place where you can live a very peaceful and relaxed life in a lot of places. Ultimately, I think it's actually one of the safest and easiest countries to live in, although I would say Japan is really rivaling that for me in a very different way.
My name is James McCorkindale. I'm 31 years old. Yeah, I was here on working holiday. I've been here for about 10 months, and I'm heading home soon because my visa's almost up. Well, before I came here, I was working at a television network in Canada. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's been great. I've loved it out here. It's been clean. The people have been friendly. The food has been great. During the summer, I went to a ton of the festivals. For a couple of weeks there, I went and visited Osaka and Kyoto and Nara, and that was great. Very lovely, very beautiful places. Yeah, well, the working holiday visa was pretty easy to apply for. Because there's just a small fee and some questions about what I'd be doing out here and stuff like that. And then when I came out here, I aimed to live very cheaply, so I found a share house to live out of, which cost me about 70,000 yen a month, and it included all the utilities, and it was pretty comfortable and clean. So it kept my costs low, and a lot of stuff here in Japan, by the means of living, is a lot cheaper right now than it is back home. Yeah. Well, a lot of the friends I know out here got their start by teaching English. it seems that there's a lot of opportunities for that. I thought about it. It was going to be like a plan B if I needed to find work. It was going to be my plan B. But yeah, there's a lot of programs that will set you up teaching English and like find you a place to live, and kind of smooth over like visa applications and stuff for you. The cities are very well planned and clean, and the people are polite and friendly, and the culture is, especially coming from Canada, our nation is very young. So to come to a place that has these really old structures and long-lived architecture, it's very beautiful to see. And yeah, to kind of experience this culture that has these really old and strong roots, and like there's a strong kind of national identity here that we're kind of missing, I think, in the newer West. Oh, for sure, yeah. I would definitely recommend a working holiday out here.
My name's Caleb, 26. Right now I live in Utah, but I've also lived in Colorado and Pennsylvania. So right now I'm a software engineer, so I do tech and cloud stuff. So I'm on a tourism visa right now, but I can stay for 3 months and I just work for my company in the US. So I guess growing up, I had a lot of Japanese friends, and so I've come to Japan a couple times. First time I went, I was 16, and so I love the culture, I love the food, I love the people. I speak Japanese at this point, so it's easy enough for me to get around. So my friend was visiting his grandparents, and I asked if I could come, and saved up money for a year and went. So I came when I was 16. I was still in high school. It was just 3 weeks during the summer. I went back home, graduated high school. I've come here a ton of times since. I lived here for like a year and 9 months-ish, and so some data science, some software engineering, some architecture, all of the above. So I guess more tech consultancy, you could say. I'm an employee, but I also do freelance. So I'm working 2 jobs right now. One is just my consulting for a company, and one is a company that I'm salaried with. Overall, my experience is really positive with Japan. This is my 6th time out here, so I really enjoyed out here. But thinking about that, I guess you have all of the standard things that people say, like everyone in Japan's really nice, everyone in Japan is very clean and organized, it feels very safe, and that's all true. And then also, I would say that, I feel like sometimes it can be a little tricky to meet people, make friends in Tokyo. I feel like there is some degree of, I guess, busyness or barrier, but learning the language really helps with that. So I think this one's an interesting one because I have a lot of Japanese friends, and I've talked to them about this. And I have a lot of Japanese friends who have moved to America and lived half their life in America, whether that's in junior high school or college or different stages of life. And the collectivist way of thinking does have a lot of pros. You get, like we said, the clean streets. You get a lot of social conformity. The social fabric is very strong, but individuality does seem to be almost punished in a way. It seems like a lot of people can be afraid to think outside of the box or to express themselves more individualistically. America's completely the opposite. We're very focused on individualism, expression, all of that, and there's a ton of cons to that too. So I think it's about finding a balance more than anything. But yeah, no, it does seem a little sad to me in a lot of ways when I hear people's stories, whether it's bullying in school or whatnot. Everything comes at a price. Yeah, so it's like I said, you get a lot of the strong social fabric by having a very strong, central way of thinking, but at the same time, it can punish individuals who do want to express more individualistically. Well, like I said, I think there's pros and cons. I guess the few things that I struggle with the most here is it feels to me like a lot of times as a foreigner, even speaking Japanese, that when I'm creating friendships, I can kind of get this far, and then it almost feels like there's a ceiling, and I can't really pass that easily. It becomes really hard to push past that because maybe I'm different, maybe it's a different reason. But I think that's one thing that I've struggled with a little bit out here. Another thing is the Japanese approach to like time and scheduling is a little bit frustrating for me personally. Like I'll be making plans with someone, they're like, okay, well, let's meet next month on like the 25th. And I'm like, that's so far away. Like, what about tomorrow? Like, what about Thursday? Like, yeah. And I guess friendship feels very different to me here than it does in the US. And that's a little bit sad for me. It doesn't feel as personal. It doesn't feel as close or supportive. And that's just been my personal experience. Even with the people here I consider closer friends, it can be hard to form those bonds. My main piece of advice is when you're coming to a new country, when you're coming to a new culture, I think you should just leave yours behind at first in a lot of ways. You're coming to a new place, you should respect their rules, you should respect their culture, you should try to enjoy and embrace their culture. What's the point in coming to a new country and a new culture if you're not going to experience it? If you're going to say, oh, it's weird that they do that, I'm not going to. I'm going to do this because I'm American or I'm British or I'm whatever culture. It seems, I don't think you'll integrate with society as well. I don't think you'll learn the language as well. I don't think you'll make friends as well if you're not trying to, I guess, I don't want to say assimilate, I guess assimilate in a sense, but unless you're trying to really enjoy what the country has to offer, if that makes sense. I think when I talk to Japanese people and when I'm out here, I realize a lot of the things that I enjoy about the US. For example, I have a lot of different hobbies, and so it's nice to have space. I get bored and I decide, you know what, today I'm going to build a pizza oven, or I want to build a sauna in my backyard, and so I can just go out there and I can build a sauna or build a pizza oven. I have all these power tools that I use to create different things, and like if I want to play an instrument, I play an instrument. I have that space, I have that privacy, I have that freedom in a sense to really do whatever I want. I can go up into the local canyon, I can camp in a ton of different places, do really whatever I want. That level of autonomy and freedom is something that I personally really enjoy, and I've noticed it can be harder to find that in other places. So I would say the main difference is growing up with the coming of social media versus growing up with social media. So when I was 14, when Instagram came out, I think I had a Facebook since I was 10, and social media was completely different at the time. Social media was just, I had the people that I knew in my life on my social media. Like people would bully other people if you had too many friends on Facebook. It'd be like, you don't know all those people, you just want to pretend to be popular. And nowadays it's all about how many people that don't know me are my friends on Facebook. How many followers do I have? How many people are following me on TikTok? And it shifted from social media being my social group, an extension of my social group. I go home and I can still communicate with the people from school. I'm communicating with strangers and random people from different communities. And I think that really has changed people's outlook on life and how people go about living their life. It's a lot less community focused nowadays. It's a lot more focused on personal gratification and popularity. And I don't necessarily think it's a positive change for society. I think it's skewed the way we think in a lot of ways. And I don't know, maybe this is me just being an old person, like hating on the younger generation, but I feel like the younger generation is not better off for it. I think Gen Z is going to have a lot of problems, especially with mental illness, especially with all of that kind of jazz, just from living in the social media age.